All right, here we go.
Hopefully I win.
Are you all?
Wait, do I show up?
Oh, no, there's 8.
Yeah, we have 8 people.
Do you see your name up there?
Yes. Why is my name?
The boss. The boss is here. All right.
The boss is here.
All right, you ready?
Yes, you're there.
All right, cool. So thank you for joining me today. Today we are doing CRUDE Analysis. For those of you that do not know, this is a qualitative data measure method, so to speak. We use it here in the office, and it is what we've used to be a little bit more cost effective when we don't want to use programs like Deduce, which I will talk about more. You can go on to the next slide. All right, so a little bit of background about qualitative data as a whole and how we got to CRUDE Analyses. We talk about post-positivism. We're going to go to the philosophical roots. So post-positivism, when you think about that, you're thinking about quantitative measures. You're thinking about cause and effect, right? You're thinking about just knowing the numbers, the logistics of why something is happening in the data. So yeah, that's what we use for quantitative. However, there's phenomenology, which is another philosophical term utilized in research, where we try to understand the meaning, the underpinning of some of the things that people say, and really being able to dissect the backgrounds, as I said, just the overall meaning, and not just looking on at cause and effect, but having more possibilities and range of what it means. Okay. What is a qualitative data analysis? Well, for one, it stems from the phenomenology of making meaning out of words, right? If someone says something a certain way, there's many ways that somebody can interpret it, so to speak. It allows us to gather rich data, right? We're not just going from point A to point B. We're giving a range of meanings of what it can mean and descriptors. We are able to explore convergent and divergent themes, so to speak. So convergent meaning that everything's coming together, so to speak. We see uniformity in the data. We see, okay, a lot of people said this, so to speak. Like, think of it as a funnel, right? Everybody sees it. Something that is most common that you see from like all of what you're analyzing. But then divergent can be something like, okay, somebody said this. One or two people said this thing, but I still think it's important because they said it. It's applicable to the research that we are doing, and when you find something like that, you have to note it as a divergent theme, so to speak, because they can warrant further research. Maybe you didn't find it in the research that you're doing right then because of the sample that you're looking at. Maybe it can be found somewhere else, because when we're looking at qualitative data, we can't really generalize it to other populations. We're restricted to that one sample to be able to generalize it to. So that's the difference between qualitative and quantitative data. Quantitative, if you have a big enough sample size, you can be generalizable to more people around you. However, qualitative data, you're kind of restricted to the institution or the program that you're looking at. Okay, so yeah, use in-depth studies. We have case studies. I guess a good way of thinking about it is a case study. What a case study is basically if we're looking at a particular program at a particular school, and you're looking at all the factors that go into play that are affecting that case. It could be the types of forms of student support, the interactions on campus, like the friendships that some of these students might be making. I'm using students as an example because we do evaluate a lot of students here at CRUDE. You're looking at everything that is surrounding what you're looking at as a whole. So that in a nutshell is what a case study is. The interviews, again, that's what we do here at CRUDE. We conduct these interviews more in depth. We were able to ask the kind of questions that we want to ask to be able to probe more information about the research topic, so to speak. And then we also have, of course, focus groups. Those of you that have not had the opportunity to do a focus group, the strength of a focus group is that you're able to utilize more than one person at once, and they're able to work off of each other's responses to your questions that you have. So if somebody is saying, oh yeah, hey, I think that I want to respond I think that this happened during this program, and someone might be like, oh, you know what, this happened too. Based upon their response, it sparked your own response, so to speak. So just being able to feed off one another and be able to gather rich data. So there are pros and cons to the interviews and focus groups. The interview, you get a chance to really have that in-depth, that story, that narrative understanding when you're analyzing the data. But then the focus groups, you might gather, you're gathering more people at one time, so to speak. So instead of doing one person at a time, you're doing 10 people. And here at CRUDE, we get the opportunity to do both. So, next slide. So the types of qualitative data. Sources used for this process would be audio recordings. Those, we do have our audio recordings. Actually, next week, we will be doing a early assessment program analysis where each of us will be having a few audio recordings, so to speak, from learning what we learned today and applying it to those audio recordings. Since we don't have transcripts, transcripts is a plus. Transcripts is what the Gear Up's case studies was all about. You know, there were here at CRUDE, we get the chance to be able to do transcripts. However, it is very costly. So for the project like EAP, it makes more sense to be able to just listen to the audio recordings and derive what we're working off of that, just based off of the pure audio. The transcripts, you can use software such as Deduce to really analyze it more thoroughly and have fancy charts to be able to illustrate what you found, what it is that you have found. Written notes as well. The written notes, those of you that have the opportunity to interview, they are able to give a greater understanding of what's going on at that time during the focus group or during the interview. It's to be able to set the atmosphere and so you can feel like you're there. I think Hector does a pretty good job at being able to interpret that when he's, because being able to have that kind of information helps us write our reports, right? It helps us be able to describe to our reader what is going on during this program evaluation of the collecting of the data. Next slide. All right. So, quiz time. What is post-positivism most closely related to?
Great. Oh, it tells you right away if you pass. Oh, great. I thought it was saying like great, you responded.
Masters, I'm just kidding.
Rudy, are you paying attention?
Oh, Rudy, but you didn't get a correct score.
Did I get it right?
Because it's on the board.
If it's,
Who are you, director?
I got it wrong.
Damn, Nancy.
What's the answer?
Oh, it was
Wait, I thought you said it wasn't cause and effect.
No, it is cause and effect.
I thought you said it was.
Post-positivism, it's quantitative data, cause and effect.
What? Nancy, why did you edit your answer?
Oh, we were talking shit about.
No, I got confused. My glasses don't work.
They don't either.
All right. Well, as you can see, everybody answered.
Except
There
one
we go.
person.
There we go.
Rudy, you're the only one that got it wrong.
Because I don't care. I got it wrong.
All right. So this was the first question. As I said before in the beginning of the presentation, post-positivism, what you want to think about is cause and effect. Is that qualitative? No, because we don't just look at cause and effect, we look at a deeper meaning. All right, you can move to the next one. Next question. To make meaning of words and experiences best describes what?
If I get this right. Why isn't that popping up?
What are my options?
Woo, good job, Liz.
Oh, I remember.
Who's double rush?
Me.
Who came in late?
Nobody's talking to you.
All
right.
To myself.
Cool. You all did it. You all know what phenomenology is. We're making meaning of something, right? Of whatever somebody is telling us, and what they are telling us. Okay. Next. Okay. Worldview. So, worldview. What is worldview? This is something that you have to be aware of when you're coming into doing your qualitative data analysis, right? So as you can see, it's a pair of glasses on that picture, and then there's a world, right? All of us, when we walk around, when we're analyzing our data, we're seeing it from different perspectives, so to speak. So the way that I see data might be completely different than the way that Rudy sees it, Mariana sees it, or Eileen sees it, based upon our own experiences. So I'll give you an example of me. I took remediation classes coming into Cal State Long Beach. That had an impact on the way that I might be able to see the data for one project known as the Early Assessment Program. I might get really excited because I find something in the data that resonated with me, but it's not something that everybody found collectively. I'm like, you know what, that resonated with me. I'm gonna hold on to that. Now, that finding could be a divergent finding, but when you're doing your write-up, you can't be like, oh, everybody said this. So you gotta be aware of your own worldview and how you interpret the data. You have to come in with an unbiased, clean slate. Doing a qualitative data analysis. Now, I was trying to think of the best way to show this to y'all, and this is how we do it here at Serial. We have categories and we have themes. Categories, we have the big picture, the bigger piece of the pie, right? And then from that, we derive themes. From those themes, those are the pieces making up the picture. So together, when you combine all these themes, it's compiling into your categories that you're making. Now, you might have about 4 categories and 3 themes per